Shabbat Shalom. This weekend we're offered an interesting series of contradictions. First and foremost, we know that we are only the second largest gathering of Jews at prayer in the state this morning. If you go southwest to Ann Arbor, there's probably a larger gathering of Jews at prayer today. The contradiction, of course, is that you're not actually supposed to pray for a miracle. And I support the boys in blue. The second contradiction I think that we're confronted with this week has to do with the Thanksgiving holiday. Hopefully everyone had a beautiful Thanksgiving meal with family and friends. Now a question for you. How many people went shopping on Black Friday? It's a synagogue, you have to be honest. How many people went shopping on Black Friday? All right, if you count the computer as well as going shopping, how many people engaged in retail activity on Friday? Okay. How many people think over the course of the weekend from Friday, Black Friday through Cyber Monday, you're going to engage in some sort of retail experience? I would say virtually everybody, right? Virtually everybody. So what is the contradiction? Perhaps you, like us at your Thanksgiving table, went around and actually, gave thanks. Talked about all the blessings we have, the blessing of family and friends, the blessing of food and having enough food on our table to eat, the blessing of simply being happy with what we have. And of course, I'm reminded that in Pirkei Avot, the rabbis teach, Ezehu Ashir, who is rich? Hasameach b'chalko, the one who's happy with what they have. So perhaps you, like me and our family, gathered around the Thanksgiving dinner table, giving thanks for all the blessings in our world, realizing how rich we actually are because of what we have. Family and friends, enough food, shelter. And of course, immediately after Thanksgiving dinner, what happens? I don't have enough, I need to get something new, And what an interesting contradiction in our country that here we start our Thursday by giving thanks for the blessings in our life, by realizing what's important. And then we spend arguably the next 72 hours or more acquiring new things. What an interesting contradiction. Now, on one hand, it seems wrong, frankly. It seems wrong to leave the Thanksgiving dinner table, as it were, and go shopping. On the other hand, and I'm no economist, but from everything I hear, it's actually really good for the economy. And what we're doing is actually supporting, to some extent, those who have less than us. So here now you have the rabbi's permission to get that extra set of boots that you want. To get that new cell phone that's just calling your name. It's good for the economy, right? So it's an interesting contradiction. Of course, my great sadness in all of this is that we go from Thanksgiving, which to me is a true Yom Tov, to Black Friday. People shop throughout the weekend, Cyber Monday, and then if you have anything left over, if you've still got a couple bucks left in your pocket in your bank account, what comes after Cyber Monday? Giving Tuesday. I always say, what a shame that Giving Tuesday's at the end. Wouldn't it be better if we could start with Giving Friday, if it were, and then with whatever's left, go shopping? But it's an interesting weekend of contradictions. And so it is that we turn in our Torah this week to Parashat Va-yetzei. And this really is one of the most amazing Torah portions to me here, because as we know, Jacob is fleeing his home. He's leaving Beersheba. He's leaving everything he knows, and he doesn't know what's coming next. Esav is in his head behind him, right? Because Jacob, as it were, stole the birthright from his older brother. And so Esau is in pursuit of Jacob, and so Jacob's mother, Rebekah, tells Jacob, leave town, leave everything you know, and to go back to the town where Rebekah herself is from. In the midst of his great fear, in the midst of this incredible anxiety, not only about will he survive, but where will the next meal come from? Where will he find shelter? We come to our Torah portion this week, and you can follow along. I'm on page 166 in your Eitz Chaim Chumashim. It says, Vayeitze Yaakov me Beersheva vayelech Haran. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. He came upon a certain place and stopped there for the night. And then, as we know the story, Jacob took a rock and used it as a pillow, and he lay down and fell asleep. And in that moment, Jacob saw angels ascending and descending. Now, the rabbis love to point out it seems counterintuitive that angels are ascending and descending. Wouldn't you presume that angels are descending and then maybe perhaps ascending? Well, our rabbis come to teach that when you are in the land of Israel, you actually have extra special angels who are guarding you, who are with you. And so as Jacob was leaving the land of Israel for the diaspora, those Israel angels were actually ascending. And the diaspora protection angels, sort of the second team, were coming down and descending in that moment. So Jacob has this dream, and he sees the angels ascending and descending. And then it says in verse 13, and the Lord was standing beside him. God himself appears to Jacob. And God says, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, the God of Isaac. The ground on which you were lying I will assign to you and to your offspring. Jacob has an encounter with God. How each of us would yearn to have quite that experience that Abraham, Isaac, and now in our Torah portion this week, Jacob had that unique encounter with God. God actually appears directly to Jacob in this dream. And then Jacob awakes from his sleep and says, surely the Lord is present in this place. And I didn't know. Now that in and of itself is a beautiful spiritual moment. But if you'll turn the page with me to the next page. After this spiritual moment, here's where the contradiction comes in. I'm in verse 20. Vayidar Yaakov neder lemor. Jacob then made a vow, saying, if God remains with me, if God protects me on this journey that I'm making and gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return safe to my father's house, then the Lord shall be my God. Jacob is fleeing for his life. He just laid down to sleep using a rock as his pillow with wild animals all around him. He has a divine encounter where God promises him that the entire land of Israel will belong to his and his descendants, that his children will be as numerous as the dust along the ground. And now Jacob is putting God to the test. That's chutzpah. And Jacob says, okay, God, yeah, everything you say is well and good, but I'm not out of trouble yet. So Jacob says to God, if you remain with me, and if you protect me on this journey that I'm making, and if you give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return safely to my father's house, then and only then will I really see you as God. Again, that's chutzpah. Now, I came across an interesting story that actually referenced this Torah portion. You see, our rabbis, by and large, don't see Jacob as a troubling character at all. And in fact, last week when we read about Jacob essentially stealing the birthright, our rabbis come to teach that Jacob didn't steal the birthright with that bowl of lentil soup, because actually Jacob gave Esau some bread first, so his stomach was full. So Esau was not under duress when Esau made the deal. And our rabbis are constantly making apologetics for Jacob, and actually they don't read the same chutzpah in this text at the pshat that the basic reading of the text would suggest. They really see Jacob as this incredible tzaddik, this incredible righteous person. And so it is in my learning that I came across an interesting story. Apparently it actually happened. We know a couple hundred years ago there were several Hasidic dynasties. And so sure it was in Eastern Europe that at a particular wedding, the great Rabbi of the Chernobyl Hasidic community, yes, the Chernobyl that we now know from its nuclear situation. Before it was that, it was a great Hasidic dynasty. So we have here the Chernobyl Rebbe. happens to be at the same wedding party as the Rebbe of Lubavitch, what today we would call the Chabad Rebbe, the Rebbe of Lubavitch. And sure enough, it's a great simcha. They're both these great rabbinic legends. These Rebbes are at the same wedding party. And the Chernobyl Rebbe, he's going around to each and every person, and he's pouring them a shot of whiskey and a l'chaim, and he's blessing each one of them, that they should know blessings of ruchaniyut and gashmiyut, that they should know blessings of spiritual reward, ruchaniyut, and material reward, gashmiyut. Well, at the same time, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's going around to each and every individual, pouring them a shot of whiskey and making a l'chaim with them. It must have been a great party. Pouring them a shot of whiskey and making a l'chaim with them. And he's saying, may each of you be blessed with gashmiyut and with ruchaniyut, with material wealth and with spiritual wealth. Well, the Chernobyl Rebbe got word of the blessing that the Lubavitcher Rebbe was saying. And the Chernobyl Rebbe, he went up to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, how can you do this? You can't put gashmiyut first. You can't put the blessings of material wealth before the blessings of spiritual wealth. Though we know, of course, that in a lot of ways that is among the foundations of Chabad or Lubavitch Chassidut. Right? The real joy in this world leads to spirituality. Whereas other Hasidic dynasties would tell us if we can really achieve spirituality of the soul, that will lead to great material success here on earth. So the Chernobyl Rebbe says to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, you can't bless Gashmiyut first and then Ruchaniyut. You have to do it the other way around. And Lubavitcher Rebbe points to our Torah portion this week. And he says, wait a second. He says, look at our Torah portion this week, and I'm still in the same psukim here. I'm still on verse 20 and 21. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says to the Chernobyl Rebbe, it says right here, that if God gives me bread, Jacob said, if God gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear, then the Lord shall be my God. If I have material success, if I have what I need in this earth, then I can really achieve a much higher spiritual success than I might otherwise have achieved. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says if God is really good to us here on earth and we have all that we need, boy, then we can really feel God's presence around us. But the Chernobyl Rebbe said, no, you're reading this all wrong. It's not that if God gives us everything we could ever want in this earth, then we can achieve spiritual success. The Chernobyl Rebbe says, if you give me bread to eat and you give me clothing to wear, God, just give me my basic needs. I just need a little bit of bread. I just need some clothes to keep me warm. Then if you give me, God, those most basic of needs, then I can truly pursue the spiritual relationship. Then I'll feel that connection with God. So it brings us back to today and this week of Thanksgiving. And what a beautiful thing that it is that here as part of our American culture, one day out of every year we give thanks. Though we know as part of our Jewish culture we're obligated to 100 blessings a day. 100 times a day we as Jews are obligated to give thanks. Imagine how grateful of a human being you'd be if 100 times a day you made a commitment to give thanks. Shouldn't we learn from the Chernobyl Rebbe and the Lubavitcher Rebbe? And say, maybe, you know what, in the midst of our Thanksgiving, I can do with a little less. And I can give a little more. So maybe we should begin this week and this Shabbos of trying to invert Giving Tuesday with Black Friday. That we should place a greater emphasis on our giving than on our buying. That maybe this week of Thanksgiving we should really take to heart the lessons of Thanksgiving and reach out to those who are in need. Realize how blessed indeed that we are and that truly we can go with a little less. And so this week perhaps we should put our community above our own needs. We should put the state of Israel above our own wants. We should really be mindful that there are so many in need throughout our community. And we are blessed with so much. This Shabbat, we are obligated to recognize the contradictions in our life and begin to flip them on their head. Now, if I could just take one more minute of your time and point out another interesting contradiction that I came across in my learning this week. As I mentioned before, Jacob experiences God in a dream. God comes to Jacob directly in this dream. Well, a little bit later in Genesis, we're actually going to read that God comes directly to Pharaoh in a dream. So rabbis ask the question here, God comes to Jacob in a dream and he becomes the great patriarch of our people. God appears to Pharaoh in a dream and he becomes, Pharaoh. What's the difference? The answer our rabbis teach is that in the Torah, when God appears to Pharaoh in this dream, Pharaoh wakes up, realizes he has a God encounter, and then the Torah tells us he goes back to sleep. But Jacob wakes up after realizing he has a God encounter. He says, God was in this place and I did not know. And Jacob began his journey from there. He didn't go back to sleep. His eyes were awakened in such a way that his journey began right then and there. This Shabbat of Parashat Va-yetzei, this Shabbat of Thanksgiving week, may God appear to us, open our eyes. Let us realize how truly blessed we are. Give us the strength and the conviction to then go out and make a difference in the lives of others. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. And let us say together. Amen.